Joining us now is someone who has been following today's election results very closely. Marco Rubio is a Florida Republican who has drawn praise in the conservative movement while he prepares for a primary challenge against Republican Governor Charlie Crist. None other than Rush Limbaugh gave Rubio a shout out the other day. Listen.
And I think, in terms of Florida, you've got a down-the-line Reagan conservative in Marco Rubio, and you've got Charlie Crist, who is the sitting governor, who David Brooks would say is a moderate. Charlie Crist embraced Obama when Obama first came here to push the stimulus.
David Brooks is a New York Times columnist. Everybody says is moderate Republican. Well, is there a fight for the future of the Republican Party going on? Marco Rubio thinks so, and he joins us now from Orlando to tell us about. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it, Marco. So first, let's start with Charlie Crist. What is he doing wrong in Florida?
Well, listen, I think he's part of a group of Republicans. It's not a fight. It's a debate about the future of the Republican Party. There are some that believe that the future of the Republican Party, in order for it to grow, is to behave more like the Democrats. There's another group, I think the majority of Republicans, of which I consider myself to be a member of that group, that don't agree. In fact, I think the key to our future success is to be an alternative, a viable and genuine alternative to the direction that Barack Obama and this Congress would take our country. And we're going to have a debate about that, and I'm pretty confident that those of us who want us to be the alternative to the Democrats are going to win.
Well, what is the message of your campaign specifically on issues?
Sure. The message is not very complicated. I believe limited government has made America the most prosperous people in the history of the world. And I think that the direction that we're going now in Washington, D.C. would make us more like the rest of the world and not like the exceptional nation that my parents found when they came here from Cuba in 1959, and the nation they worked so hard so that I could inherit. And that's the country I want my kids to inherit. And they're not going to if we go the direction that this administration wants to take us. And so I think it's important to have voices in politics that will say that.
You mentioned your family. Of course, they were exiles from Fidel Castro's Cuba. After he took over, they went to Miami, then they traveled around a bit, went to the Southwest. You came back to Florida. To what extent do you think you can harness the energy and specifically the votes of Latin Americans who have the same vision?
Look, Americans of Hispanic descent, what they want more than anything else is to leave their children with every opportunity they did not have. And I think our message of limited government is the one that provides that. I believe that limited government involvement in the economy is exactly the kind of remedy that's necessary so that people can truly, when they work hard and play by the rules, leave their children better off than themselves. I think that's the message that wins among all Americans, but especially among those of Hispanic descent.
Now, I know you were rushing to get here. You didn't hear the top of the show, but we had a debate, and Susan Estridge, a Democratic analyst, said, it's fine with her. Republicans are tearing each other up, the conservatives against the moderates. How would you respond to that?
Listen, I think this country already has a Democratic Party. It doesn't need two Democratic parties. And the debate is that there are some, I don't believe the majority, I think there are some Republicans that have bought into that notion that the left would like us to buy into, that in fact the Republicans need to be more like them in order to win elections. I think the majority of Americans think that this massive expansion of government, think that the spending of money we do not have, printing money and borrowing money to fund the operations of government, I think the massive number of Americans believe that that is an extreme view of government's role in our economy, and they're looking for an alternative. And the future of the Republican Party is to be that alternative in a genuine and effective way.
Well, there was a time when Ronald Reagan was viewed as an extremist who could never win a national election, but he eventually got a lot of independents voting for him. Even a lot of Reagan Democrats went for him. Do you think it's still possible for a Reagan-esque message to do the same?
I think that message of not having government pick the winners and losers, of not having a government that spends money it doesn't have, I think that's the mainstream of political thought. And when the Republicans are about those things, Republicans win. When they're about anything else, Republicans lose.
Now, Marco, you have to, as you well know, you need a lot of money to run for elective office, particularly one as big as the governorship of Florida. Do you have, is there a fight not only for the hearts and minds of voters, but also for the hearts and money of the Republican Party in Florida?
Sure, it's important to get the grassroots activism to also turn into donors. That's why everyone that's watching tonight should donate at marcorubio.com. And
we're not part. We don't want. We open ourselves up to Governor Crist as well when he wants to come on scoreboard. So we want to make that clear.
Well, he's got plenty of money. I'm the one that needs to raise the money.
All right. But again, do you? What's happening in that regard? Because clearly you're going to have to pry some donors off of the Crist campaign, right?
You know what? Our donors are from all over Florida and all over the country. We have 13,000 donors already, and almost 98% of them have not given the maximum amount, which means they're recurring donors that can keep giving throughout this campaign. And I'll say this to you that sets me apart from my opponents. Every single person that's given me money has done so because they want to, and every one of our donors that lives here in Florida is going to be voting for me. The other candidates in this race can't say that.
Well, finally, we got to run, but there is clearly an economic message that we don't want the government to go in debt in order to become bigger and take more of our economy. Is there also a social message? How Ronald Reagan said, you know, morning in America. He was about an image of the United States that also transferred beyond his economic message. Are you doing the same?
I think so. Look, I think the world is a safer place when America is the strongest country on it. We're not perfect, but we don't have anything to apologize for. America has been a force of good since the end of World War II and through most of our history throughout the world. We should be proud of that. Marco Rubio, best of luck to you. Again, our invitation is out for Governor Christ as well. Thank you for coming here, Marco. Appreciate it. Thank you. Coming up.